we all struggle the most when we get in a low spot, and we're suffering, and we can't see things clearly, and nothing makes sense, and we can't get in the state we want to be, and we don't like the state. Is this ringing a bell with anybody, or am I just sharing too much yet? Am I on the wrong call? So I was going to talk a little bit about my journey, and then you can kind of ask me or share, or it'd be great to kind of talk more. But when I first came across the principles, I was very dismissive and arrogant. So I thought they were stupid, and I thought people that thought they were relevant were stupid. And because they were they had very clear minds, they looked stupid. Like they weren't doing a lot of thinking. So I thought they were simple folk, and I'm like, well, good for them. But, I'm a little more engaged in life. I'm a little more on top of things than that. I'm not so stupid. It turns out I was a bit more stupid. But what got me interested is I saw shifts in people where they went from insecure, upset to clearer. And I'm assuming everybody on this call is here because they've had an experience where they've felt that a different quality of experience is possible without them doing a lot of work, that they've had a shift where they've gone from a normal to something much better, something much nicer, something much more grounded, something much more clearer, something much more resilient. When you go into those clearer states and you almost don't really recognize yourself, like, wow, I didn't freak out, or I was totally ungripped by my normal obsessions or whatever. I'm making this up, but based on my own experience. And that's what happened to me. I got interested because I saw that, and then I experienced that. So I woke up to the fact that I was living in an optional reality that very easily and naturally defaulted to something much clearer, something much nicer, something much deeper, and something much more natural, something that was much more me, right? I got that piece of understanding. But I also had the misunderstanding that somehow that was something that I was using the principles to do. So I felt like the principles was like a secret trick. Okay, so I know that when I'm not thinking, I feel better. And so I know I'm thinking, so I know how to know what the problem is, and I know what to do about it. See, I thought I was using the principles as a guide to making a better experience for myself, having clearer thinking, being more intelligent, being more incapable. I thought it was like a secret toolkit. See, and it was funny because sometimes it seemed to work, because I did get some understanding. I lived in a better, before I learned the principles, I was 95% analyzing what I was concerned about, right? And if you just think you're going to go somewhere and you start worrying whether you're going to get there on time, and you keep thinking about that was my mental life 95% of the time. Oh, what shall I worry about now? What do I need to think about now? And by think, I meant worry and be concerned, and so that was my life. Now, when I realized, oh, that's not clear thought through the windscreen, that's you ruminating on insecure thought, that stopped making sense. And just because of that, I had all this additional mental space, which meant that I had all this bigger window for just purity of thought or new thought or fluidity of thought. And that raised my mental well-being. But I thought it was because I understood and I was kind of wangling it. and that was really troublesome, because I had that misunderstanding. I had another misunderstanding too that I'll come on to, but I had that misunderstanding, so that when I was in a bad place, I would get to work. when I was in a good place, I wouldn't get the work. So I kind of tend to stay there, and I'd kind of just be in a clearer spot. And I'm like, Aaron, you're doing fantastic. But it's not me. It's just like in fluidity of thought. You go in and out of thought, and you know, the mind's an incredible thing. You get what you need. You get a bunch of other crap too, but big deal. When I would get down, I'd be fine unless I didn't like it. And if I get down and I didn't like it, I'd be like, all right, you're in trouble, down, because I got these principles and I'm going to kick your ass, you know? and I would try to do that. And it really didn't work very well. It really didn't work very well. But I didn't give up on it. I just thought, oh, well, you know, sometimes maybe I'm not perfect at it. And maybe some downs are, you know, tougher than others, and blah, 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 blah. Now, it wasn't till I had a couple insights that helped me with the misunderstanding I had that I realized the principles aren't a guide to better thought management. The principles aren't a guide to how to deal with your thought better. They're a complete decoding of what it is. Right? So the power of it, I thought the power of it was in a guide that I could then use to sort my thinking out, get myself in order, you know. Because otherwise, you know, I was a very wacky individual. But what I later came to appreciate was that the power of the principles was purely, it was much more inbuilt than that. It was purely as an understanding. And I'll tell you how that came about. And it was really 2 points of insight that I can pin down, but maybe I'm making this up. The first was I was sitting with Linda Pransky, and she was talking to a client, and you've probably seen this, but she drew this up and down line of experience of thought, and I'm like, yeah, no, I know that, and I got that, and she said something that somehow struck me, which is, you know, you're never going to change that. Like, you are never going to change the fluid, made up, random, arbitrary nature of thought. And she wasn't talking to me, but she was talking to a client. But you can understand it. And at that moment, I thought, whoa, that's different. That's different. And it really affected me because I realized, oh, I'm trying to reduce the downs and increase the ups. And built into that is, I'm focused on, I don't like the downs and I like the ups. Which, when I'm down, makes down much more pain. Like, being down is painful anyway, because you have thought that gives you a bad feeling and makes things look khaki, and you look khaki, and that means bad for anyone that's not following me. And there's nothing you can do about that. But if you then don't like it, well, now you're doubling up on your suffering, because you got something that feels bad that you decide you don't like. It's like, if you ever look at young kids when they're hungry, they flip out because they're hungry, which doesn't feel good, and they don't like that they're hungry, which feels 10 times worse, right? Whereas, not always, but a lot of times adults, they get hungry, but they're okay with the feeling of being hungry, so they just don't really react to it. It's not really a thing. It's like, well, what am I going to do? I'll eat when you follow me? So there was that was built into my whole system. And I realized that if you really understood feeling bad, you would see it completely differently. There's certain things you would see about it. It was completely different. One is, you'd appreciate, oh, this is an experience of a virtual reality running through my sensory system, looking like my life. It's a virtual reality. There's nothing actually wrong. There's nothing actually bad happening, except thought is making me feel terrible and making things look all messed up. So in that sense, it's complete trickery. So I was actually talking to a client on Friday, and she was saying, I'm really in a bad place because I'm sensitive. and I feel bad for a long amount of time. I said, well, look, the problem isn't that you're sensitive. That's good. If you feel bad, that's good, because all the information you need about your mind, about your level of clarity, about your state of consciousness is in the feeling. If you can't feel the feeling, you're blind. You're totally blind. You don't know, am I thinking clearly? Am I not thinking clearly? Should I trust what I see? Should I not? Is it insightful? Is it bogus? You have no idea. You have no idea if you can't feel it. So like sometimes I'll have clients and I'll say to them, so, you know, blah, 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 whatever. And they'll be like, wow, that's ridiculous. And I'm like, well, you know, can you see you're getting agitated? I'm not getting agitated. I just don't like what you said. And they literally can't feel it. So you'll notice that we suffer without noticing if we don't feel that it's a bad feeling and we don't take the information out of that bad feeling. Now, most people think the information is, oh, I don't like this situation, or I don't like being cold, or I don't like being fired, or I don't like rejection, or I don't like uncertainty. But the information is really, you're in thought that's making you feel bad. And what do we know about thought that's making you feel bad? It's disrupted, it's distorted, it's distressed. And so it's fundamentally unsustainable, because anything that's, you know, disrupted tends towards rest, inertia, right? So you're on your way out of it as soon as it occurs. And secondly, I don't know if this is, everybody knows this saying, but you don't know your ass from your elbow when you have unclear thought. So that information in the feeling tells you everything you need to know. And the second insight I had about that was when there were a group of us having a conversation with Sydney Banks. And someone in the conversation said to him, now, Sid, what do you do when you're feeling bad, when you're in a bad place? He says, I don't know what you mean. I said, well, you know, Sid, like when you feel bad, like when you're in a bad place, you know, what do you do? He says, I don't know what you're talking about. So they said, well, now, and they got a little uncertain. They got a bit unsure. Like, now, do you feel bad? Like, do you have bad feelings? He says, oh, yeah, I have. Oh, yeah, I have loads of bad feelings. I get angry. I get blah, blah, blah. They said, oh, okay, phew. They got really relieved. They said, okay, cool. Well, what do you do about it? He says, I don't know what you mean. She says, well, like, when I feel bad, I read your books or I listen to your tapes. And he says, oh, God, I don't know what you do that for. He says, essentially what he said, this is just my memory. This is what I heard. You must not understand what's happening when you feel bad. You see, when you feel bad, your mind's all messed up. So anything you do is going to be messed up by the thinking that's making you feel bad. So if you read my book, you won't hear it. If you listen to my tapes, you won't hear it. If you go for an ice cream, you won't taste it. So there's really, and this is what I heard is, oh, when you feel bad, there's nothing you can do except understand the nature of feeling bad such that you don't misunderstand it, take it too seriously, and essentially try and do something about it. It'd be like standing in a rocky boat and trying to right it by putting your foot in the right place. Just keep it going like that. And I got this tremendous sense of relief that was like, whoa, I'm off the hook. There's literally, because what I got from what he said was, when you're down, there's literally nothing you can do, because the only thing you have is the messed up quality of thought that's causing the feeling. So anything you do just keeps it in play. You know, and the analogy that came to mind was like you're cleaning your house with a dirty cloth. So you say, well, I have to wipe to make it cleaner. Yeah, but the cloth is dirty. Yeah, but what, am I supposed to not wipe it? Well, it depends what you want to have happen, because you've got a dirty cloth. Do you know what happens if you wipe with a dirty cloth? You make dirty, you know? And it's just coming to grips with the reality of it kind of puts you into this position where you're like, oh, my hands are tied. My hands are tied in a good way. And what happened to me after that is feeling bad changed completely. It was like, oh, you're experiencing it perceptual emotional turbulence and there's nothing you can do. But because there's nothing wrong outside of the way that you feel and the way things look, there's nothing you need to do. See how that demystifies it, decodes it? And from that time on, I realized, God, if I don't like feeling bad, if I feel worse about feeling bad and being in a bad place than I do about feeling hungry, I must be taking it out of context. I must be really blowing it out of proportion. And here's another one that's tricky. If I want to do something to get out of it quicker, I'm taking it too seriously. See? Whereas what happens normally is you feel bad, you don't like it, you react to it, it gets worse. You want to get out of it, you try to get out of it, not realizing you've misunderstood it. You're kind of reacting to it instead of seeing, well, what is it? Oh, well, my life's gone to pot. Okay, how do you know? Well, I feel terrible and it looks terrible. There you go. Feelings and perception. That's got to be a thought thing. So what you know is you don't know because you're all, you got the dirty cloth all over your lenses. So the other thing is, like, what you come back to before that as well is, if you know it's never gonna tip over, what do you care if it's rocking? For myself as well, like I'm like, there's a level of that that's so true, but then sometimes I'm still like, well, don't rock it, because I'm disturbed by the fact that I'm upset. And then I'm like, well, okay, well, why do you care if you're upset anyway? If you really, really, really willing to consider, it's just a thought storm. It's just thought. I mean, I know we say that all the time, but I mean, like, what does that mean? Meaning, look, there's something happening in your mind that's unsustainable, that's completely illusory, that's real to us, totally real to us, but cannot be as bad as it feels because it only exists in that thought. It doesn't exist anywhere else. So I wanted to introduce that idea because I found that that's the answer to being in a bad place. And here's an even more interesting thing, at least for me, is I'll notice myself be down with understanding and be kind of fine even though I'm feeling bad, and be down without understanding and freak out and try to help myself. And, oh, it's only thought, Aaron, and why is that not working? And blah, blah, blah. And seeing, oh, okay, you must just be down without understanding. Why aren't you kind of, you're down. This is what it's like. This is what it's like. This is what it's like. And everything your mind says, it's like, that's what it's like. It's like, well, I feel like I've really messed up. Well, that's what being down is like. And I feel like it's not going to be okay. Well, that's what being down is like. It's all fruit of the poison tree. It's all part of the propaganda of a disturbed state of mind. And if you can start to consider that might be true, it's like, well, and I feel like if I don't do something bad's going to happen. That's part of that thought. Anything that has the feeling associated with it is part of it. So you can't see the upset thought as a way to help yourself get out of the upset thought. It doesn't make any sense. Even though it does when I'm that way. Like you're not gonna get out of any of it. You're just gonna be able to have some perspective on it.
What I really love about the way you explain things, Aaron, is you make it so relatable. Like I got into the principles about 2 years now. Just got introduced about 2 years ago, just watching stuff. And I was really into Michael Neal stuff because I got introduced to his stuff, and then I got into George Mansky and such. But I find that the way you explain it is so direct, yet gentle, and I'm able to explain it to the people I talk to, because of that. And they've seen some shifts, which I was like, wow,
that's cool,
incredible. So thank you for that. I really wanted to highlight.
Oh, well, thanks for letting me know. I mean, it's great to hear. Really good to hear.
Yeah, it's just beautiful. I also wanted to, and I have a question at the end of this, but I kind of want to give you a little bit of a background. I know this is the addictions, to principles topic. So That's why I'm attracted to it. I lived a huge part of my life in a gang-related world. About 10 years of my
No
life was
kidding. Mm.
gangs and drugs and such. And I worked so hard to get out of it. It took me a good 5 years to really get out of it and empower myself and motivate and frame my mind change and all that stuff. And I really could not understand what was going on. And I was really proud that I got myself out of it, until I ran into the principles. And I listened to one webinar where Dr. Bill Pettit was talking with Jackie Ford. And what he mentioned was that, people kept asking me, how did you do that? Because I didn't go to NA or AA or nothing. I just kind of just, left that life.
Yeah.
And he explained that when our state of mind is, when our experience of reality is like down here, alcohol makes it go up here. So it's effective, but not sustainable. So you have to kind of do it every day. But then you have a shift where your state of mind is better than the alcohol. Then alcohol doesn't make sense anymore.
Yeah.
And I really had to pause and I had tears down. I was like, that is it. That's what happened. So that's how I got into the principles. And it's been so profound in a way where it just keeps deepening that one. And now I'm in a place where I want to share it with others because I want to go back to that life and see how I can just see people that I talk to struggling so much. And it's so clear that it's thought. So I'm in a place where I started speaking to people about the nature of thought, which was very helpful. But then what was really even, for lack of a better explanation, 100 times helpful, I'm pretty sure it's more. But when I started understanding mind and started talking about mind and not thought anymore, everything they just got thought as a byproduct of understanding mind. So my question really is how I can't seem to find a bridge to actually get that across to people unless they're wanting to change. That's probably not the best way to put it, but I'm in Vancouver, BC, very close to Saltburn Island.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah, and there's a lot of shootings, gangs, and stuff going on here for the last few years. Just tons and tons and tons. And all I see out there, as far as resources go, is, that's the organizations are trying to scare people out of the game. They're trying to manage them. They're trying to help them with coping mechanisms. Now, my challenge here is I can't seem to find a bridge to kind of start a conversation that will help them see this, which is not popular, which is not backed up by my doctor credibility that I don't have. I'm just wondering if you have any tips of how I could get started the conversation.
No, I mean, absolutely. Absolutely. So, and who are you talking about? People like yourself that are actually involved in drugs and gangs and all of that, or are you talking about some other population? Doesn't matter, but
yeah. So I've been holding just local events here, talking about, because I'm a personal life coach and business coach now for the last 3 years. It's been going well. So I talk to my community around that. But now I want to get into that community, the gang-related world.
Cool. So I'm going to say something that's very, very general. Okay. If it's too general, then you guide me how to make it more specific to what you want to know. Okay. Cool. See, here's the thing. We know for sure that people feel better and do better when they live in a higher level of consciousness, clearer state, whatever you want to call it, right? We also know for sure that people suffer more and do worse when they don't. And it's relative to where they are on that continuum. I'm taking too long, I'm sorry. But we also know for sure that the more you understand the principles, the more free you feel about moving along that continuum, and the less affected you are by the negative effects of fluctuations in thought, right? You with me so far?
Yes.
Right. Now, that means that people fall into two categories. One category is people that there's something they want to see change or improve, right? And that's fairly simple. So I mean, some people say, well, if they're not interested in the principles, I don't know how to talk to them. And that's because they don't see the link between the principles and the rest of people's lives. But once you see that link, then anything someone wants help with, you know, they only need the help because they're not clear enough. And they're not clear enough because they don't see their own freedom of mind or the link with freedom of mind and clarity. And you can absolutely unpick that for them, and they'll have everything they need, and they will be grateful beyond belief. We know that.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is to show them that. So like, I just as an example, I would have a father call me up and say, look, years ago, I want you to work with my kid. They're really anxious, and I just think they're not going to do well at university, and you know, they're in their room too much. And I said, well, I can do that, no problem. What does the kid think? Doesn't want to hear about anxiety. Doesn't want to talk about anxiety. Doesn't want to know anything about anxiety. No problem. Call up the kid. Well, your dad asked me to call you. Well, I don't want to do therapy. I don't want to talk about anxiety. Oh, that's fine. But what do you want? Is there anything? Is your life exactly? Well, you know, it would be nice to be more comfortable talking to other kids. No problem. I know the answer to that. Well, what do you mean? And then I'll show them the relationship between insecurity and clarity, and how there's an answer to that. And then they'll be like, great. Same thing, so everybody's happy. Rise with the tide, right? The second category is what you're asking about, is that people who don't have anything they want to talk about, don't have anything they want to change, right? No problem. Because when you talk to them, you'll see what their mental life is like, and you can show them, look, you know, so this isn't a problem. That's not a problem. What about this? What about that? You seem a bit stressed. So you'll be able to see the downside and limitation of their way of living in a way that they might not even be able to. You know, so it's not a problem for you. That there's nothing. So you're kind of agitated and kind of on edge a lot of the day. That's not a problem for you. No, it's not a problem for me. Now, can you change that whenever you want? So there's a way in which, because you understand the principles, you'll see the parts of people's lives that are causing them problems. Now, they might not care about it, but at some point, they'll start to, you know, you'll see something that they'll be like, yeah, no, actually, that's not going to work out for me, you know. But I want to add one more thing, okay? Yeah. But it's very easy to get more interested in that logic than the person. See, because that's the other trick. Because that was my way. I'd like kind of like a legal argument with someone. Well, would you or wouldn't you say that it? You know? Right. Whereas actually, what I found is because you understand the principles, you can be very at ease. People like to be with other people that are very at ease, very engaged, listen to them. And that allows you to really be with people, care about them, and connect with them. And that provides a kind of relationship that people are interested in, and everything comes out of that. So one of the problems that I had is that I had amazing logical arguments to people that didn't really want to hear from me. But I didn't understand that at that point. And now I feel like, look, if I'm really got my mind free and I'm enjoying and at ease, then I'll have a conversation and everything will come out of that. And the temptation, again, in the feeling is, you feel good, you're talking to someone, and then your impatient mind says, oh, talk to them about that, hammer that. And if it comes out of that feeling, I've learned like, no, I don't think so. But if it comes out of a clear feeling, even if it makes no sense whatsoever, then I'm like, what about, you know?
Right. So. Okay.
Is that a tool?
It helps. It helps a lot. And I know it's going to sink in later even more, but what really was helpful was in the first category to kind of go with whatever they're wanting to talk about. Not wanting to think that you know what they want to talk about. because I kind of go from my experience, because I know how much suffering there was in that world
Yeah.
So I'm unconsciously,
Yeah.
innocently assuming that they're suffering in the same way,
Totally.
which
Yeah,
could be different.
Totally. And what that says is, because we live in a reality of our own thought, we can do whatever we want with our reality. It's mind-blowing how many different realities there are. So you can meet someone and say, well, look, so don't you want to get out of the stress of what might happen? Oh, no, I like that. Makes me feel alive.
Yeah.
What? Makes you feel alive? Well, tell me more about that, because I hated it. Oh, like this and that. And I feel like my life's boring without it. And actually, it's the one part of my life I look forward to, is kind of really having my life on the line. Wow, that's fascinating. Well, I can understand that. What would you think about having that more alive feeling without having to risk your life? Would that be a plus, or would that be like, it wouldn't be so good? Well, I don't know. I didn't think about it. Oh, okay.
Nice. I love that.
Actually, I don't like to help someone unless I really know what they want. Because I feel like, well, how could I help them if I don't know what they want?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
But once I know what they want, I can go full
Yeah.
power behind it. Like, you want this or not? Anyway.
Yeah,
I
totally.
didn't mean
I
to
love
interrupt.
that. My next question was, because I've talked to people that are completely in a world where they think they don't want to change it and they just don't see any other way out, and that's the way it is and whatever. And I've been there too. Then there's a world of people where they want to change, but they're just hell-bent on managing their thoughts because that's the popular dialogue, and there's data behind it, and there's theories behind it. And so they're like, this is the way to go. And so they manage their thoughts and manage their thoughts and manage their thoughts. And then one day they slip, and they slip all the way back down.
Oh, yeah.
Right? They don't go one step down. They go all the way back down. So I'm just kind of trying to piece together how to start that conversation. And you did explain it very well, is to kind of just put the focus on them and be curious about it. Thank you very much. That was very helpful.
Great. Well, that's good.
All right.
That's very good.
Thank you.
Nice to hear from you too. Yeah.
I've also been coming from a 12-step background without ever really having done the 12 steps, because I always was a little bit reticent to do it. And then when I was full-fledged ready to do it, like around November of this year, I kept on getting these emails about Innate Health Conference. And when I very reluctantly, like very dubiously, doubtingly looked, it was like, what's the big deal? I found what works for, what they say works, what works for people who are at rock bottom. And in my case, it's under-earning. It's not an abstention kind of addiction. It's just not getting up and getting a living and finding a profession and taking life seriously, which I feel still is, pretty different in certain ways, but maybe not. So I started getting these emails, and when I saw videos of how people had been relieved of their addictions without having done 12 steps, that piqued my interest, and I went to the conference. Conference did not speak to me at all. Maybe a little bit.
The LA conference, was it?
No, in New Jersey, in Fort Lee.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Fort Lee, it was the Wellness Institute, maybe Tversky Wellness Institute.
I know where you mean.
Maybe one or two of the speakers spoke to me, but it's a very somnolent kind of experiance, like just sitting there and, and at one point I just took all the women and I said, let's go exercise. We went into a side room and, we just and did yoga, and everyone was happy. I was like, these guys do not know what they're talking about. You need to have movement. What is this? Oh my gosh. So it's holistic, not just sit and absorb whatever. Anyway, so and I don't know if
I get you.
And the men, whatever. And the men said to me afterwards, well, we kind of just we didn't put them into the program because we just figured everybody knows what's good for them. I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys are just, you can't sit for 8 hours straight. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Thank you. Exactly. Listen to the women. Like listen to the ladies. Just guys. In any case, so here I am, in my upper 40s, and still not having chosen a profession, having gotten a very serious diagnosis earlier this year in a surgery, and and I just coming from a very religious background also, where there's a lot of stress on changing, on improving, on vigilance of our character traits, and right now it's before the new year, and I just. Listening to you guys is very relaxing. Like you said, everybody loves to be around people who are relaxing. I'm just wondering how to, how do you put that into practicality? Like if I never had to be living, I would be sitting on the couch just listening to you guys.
Yes,
and I wouldn't be listening. Just one more thing. I'm not one of these
Yeah,
people
go
who
for it.
has a profession and then discovered innate health. I'm one of these people who
Yes.
never took life seriously, has not manifested my potential, and I'm wondering how innate health can help with that.
Yes, I got that.
Over religion and 12 steps. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I got that from what you said, so I'm
Thank
clear.
you for letting me
Well,
pontificate.
no. It was really helpful actually, and I feel like I can answer that quite directly. But I think if you could just listen to me for like 3 to 5 minutes, and then ask me a question if there's any there, okay? Because I want to see if I can show you how innate health would work in your situation, okay?
And
So
just real quick, Beth, before you start, Beth, I had to mute you because of the wind in your microphone. So when you are ready to respond, make sure you unmute yourself. That's all. Now go ahead.
But she can't do that, Greg, because she's on a phone.
Oh, actually, I just think I'm good.
You can.
I'm back inside. I'm indoors.
Great,
Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, so I'm going to attempt to answer it. So and I'm going to use a certain way of doing it, and hopefully that will help. See, what the principles point to in a situation like yours, and in all situations, is you can separate the clarity of mind in which someone thinks about something and the thing that they're thinking about, right? Now, you have an issue that you're thinking about that's very important to you, that's about you feeling like you're late.
Me, but it's getting cut off.
Oh, I'm getting cut off? Is that me or is that Greg?
Not you. It's not you, Aaron.
Oh, okay. Okay. So it might be the phone signal. So you have an issue that's really important to you. And now forgive me for saying this, just see if you can see what I'm saying. There is a lot of what I would call insecure, pressurized, critical thinking involved in it, right? So if we can separate the issue that you're thinking about is that, I would like to get off my couch and have a career, and we can separate that from the state of mind in which you do it. Like, what's your level of clarity when you focus on that issue? I would say that the issue is very important and the level of clarity is very low. So you do not sound like someone that feels good within themselves when you think about this issue. And those are the issues that people get stuck on. They're highly important, so they continue to focus on them, but they have very low clarity, so that focus just undermines them, makes them feel worse, and they make no progress, so they get even more pressurized, blah, 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 blah. You can see how that works, right? So if you want to deal with this, really, I think we lost her. Anyway, she can watch the recording. If you want to deal with this,
I'm still here. I'm good. Thank you.
Oh, I'm so happy. Phew.
No. I was in the stairwell. I apologize for all the difficulty.
Oh, no problem.
Thank you.
I just didn't see your number.
I'm back.
So if you want to deal with this, you have to separate the issue and the clarity of mind in a two-step process. You need to respect that in order to make progress on anything, you need a lot of clarity of mind, because that allows you to separate from habitual thought, to be relatively unaffected by the restrictions and derailing nature of insecure thought, pressurized thought, impatient thought, critical thought, etc., etc. And I work mostly with businesses, and people actually set themselves back when they try and do things in unclear states, and they start to make progress when they have clearer minds and more creative, clearer, responsive, resourceful thinking. So the progress that people make is a symptom of their level of clarity, right? The ratio of distorted to resourceful thinking that they're able to have, right? And this is not something you do, it's a symptom of your state of mind. So what you need to do, okay, I'm wagging my finger here, no, it's up to you, is prioritize your clarity of mind. And what you need to do in order to do that is be willing to stop thinking about this issue long enough that you can get some distance from all the insecure, pressurized, critical thought that you have about it, right? All the upset, judgmental thought you have about whether you have a job, what kind of job you have, how old you are, how long you've been trying, all the thought that seems to justify unhelpful thought, right? So because this issue is so important, in your mind, it sounds like it justifies unhelpful thought. And that undermines you because you're trying to make progress using unhelpful thought, which is just doesn't ever happen, right? So if you can prioritize letting your mind clear you essentially be willing not to think about this, because every time you think about it, you kind of go back to the unhelpful thought, just to let your mind refresh, restabilize, reset. You need a reset. You need a kind of fresh start in your mind, because the way you've been doing it is not doing it. So that's kind of what makes sense to me from the principles perspective, is you kind of have to find your clarity of mind. But in order to do that, you have to be willing to not think about an issue that's very important to you, because the thought that you have about it is getting in your way, right? Once you're willing to do that, you'll start to realize that you have these temptations, or you're still on the couch there, but you say, well, look, that's not my problem. My problem is letting my mind kind of reset. And until I feel better, it hasn't reset, right? And then what happens is you'll start to realize you can have very desperate thinking about something that's important to you and not listen to it. So it goes in one ear and out the other. And then you'll notice when that happens, you start to have clearer thought. Now, we don't know what that clearer thought might be. It could be, why don't you chat to Judy, because she knows a lot of places you could work? Or it could be, God, have you been blowing this work thing out of proportion? Like, nobody knows what the clear thought's going to be, but it will start to give you a next step. So the idea is, if you want to make progress on an issue, you have to be willing to disrespect all the thinking about it that seems to be important and time sensitive, but actually drags you into a distorted state of mind, and get more interested in clear thought, even if it goes against what you think is right. So you might have a clear thought that says, what are you worried about with this work thing? And then your insecure thought says, well, I'm worried about, I've been on the couch for 20 years. Say, oh yeah, but and you follow the clear thought, you'll find that you start making progress in no time. So it's having enough of an understanding to know when your mind is not helping you, so you don't get stuck in these dysfunctional loops. Now, they say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. It's because we justify unhelpful thought for fantastic reasons. But the most important thing is, if you can feel that it's unhelpful thought, there can't be a good reason to justify it, because it's just going to get in your way. Doesn't mean you don't have to have it. It means you don't want to be guided by it. Do you understand what I'm saying? I know it might not make sense in terms of your situation. So do you understand what I'm saying? And do you have any questions based on that?
So I think I hear. I just, I've tried to read some of the principles, some of the books I relate to, some of them I don't. Greg will often say, just let it, I think, Greg, you say, like, let it go in, don't try to intellectualize and understand it. So I tried it, like today, I was just in this calm state, but I tried to maintain the calm state. And anytime I was out of calm state, I tried to get back into calm state, and everything was, blissful. And, and I just don't exactly understand what the principles are all about. And I know you're not supposed to do the principles, you kind of just do them anyway. I don't, to me, I don't know what that means to clear the mind. I don't know how one goes about doing that, besides, there's techniques that we know that, mindfulness, bike riding, walking, whatever it is. But what do you mean when you say clear the mind?
I didn't mean to say that, and it doesn't work like that. See, what will happen is, as you start to see that there are certain kinds of thought that have a certain kind of feeling that lead you into a dysfunctional state where you can't make progress, your respect for that kind of perception, that kind of thought will go down. So you'll take less notice of it. As you take less notice of it, because it doesn't make sense to, you'll spend less time spinning your wheels in that kind of thought, because it'll look like a waste of time. That will leave you with a clearer mind. You can't clear your mind. Nobody can clear their mind. You can only start to understand that the thought that you're doing makes no sense. And as you can't to understand that, you spend less time doing it. And as a result, there's less happening in your head, and it feels clearer. Clear your mind is a bad idea. I wouldn't try to do that. I wouldn't recommend it. I'm not interested in that. I think it's stupid. The mind is perfectly clear, but for the fact that we think it makes sense to think in all these stupid ways. And it's catching on to how stupid these ways of thinking are that leads to you spending less time filling up your mind with unhelpful thought. But if it makes sense to you to fill up your mind with unhelpful thought, trying to clear your mind afterwards is just stupid. It's like, well, you know, it makes no sense. It's like buttering the bread on both sides. And there's why is there butter all over the counter? And it doesn't make any sense. So the principles is about seeing how your mind makes sense. So you say, well, how's this make sense? I haven't managed to get a job and I've been all over myself about it. Well, it makes sense because when people get intense and insecure about things, they're in no fit state to make progress. It makes perfect sense. But until you're willing to consider that fact, there's nothing you can do. Clear your mind. That's a distraction. You could have realized that the way you're thinking is your problem. It's not that you have a problem that you need to think harder about. You're already thinking so hard, you got no space to have any clear thought. But until you know that, clearing your mind is going to be tough. Except for the fact, actually, I take it back. You sound like you quite naturally had a fairly clear mind today. So I guess it comes easily. But it's that understanding piece that makes sense of how you make sense of what's going on in your mind. That's what the principles are about.
So if I'm having an untoward thought, like an uncomfortable feeling, that just means that I am paying too much attention to my thought, and I just need to, just whatever, pay it no heed, and just, go on my merry way, or whatever, or until something else comes to me.
Well, almost. So you know how,
or when I'm calmer, something else will come to me.
Yeah, but if you feel bad, okay, that just tells you that the thought running through your circuitry at that time is not going to help you. That's all it tells you. You're not putting too much attention. It doesn't tell you if you're putting attention. It doesn't tell you anything other than the thought running through your mind right now, not going to help you. You can think about it as much as you want, still not going to help you. So it's really seeing that. Oh, your feelings tell you, whether your thought's going to help you in exactly the same way that the smell of food tells you whether it's rotten. So my kids look at the milk. They want to tell if it's off by looking at the sell-by date. That doesn't tell you anything, because you can have milk that hasn't reached the sell-by date that's as sour as anything. But you can only tell it by smelling it. So they drink the milk because the date's not up yet. They're like, ew, that's sour. I'm like, well, if you wanted to know, you should have smelled it. So the feeling is the smell of the quality of your thinking. And that's all you need to know. Don't worry about many of the rest. Think about it as much as you want. Don't think about it. Listen to it. Don't listen to it.
What about when feeling bad feels good? Mm-hmm. Because it's so habitual or so whatever. And if I have mm-hmm. spent my mm-hmm. life swimming in this sea of mm-hmm. insecure thinking,
yes.
when I get out of the water up on the shore, mm-hmm. for a minute it's like, oh, wow, fresh air. And then I'm cold and I'm shivering and I'm all pruny. And as much torture as the water is, it's where I, at some level, I believe I belong there. What is that? What is that?
Well, I mean, I could be wrong about this, but to me, that's a beautiful description of how thought changes, of how our minds change. See? So like, you get in a new feeling, you really like it, and then you can have an insecure thought. And in that insecure thought, you go from feeling so grounded and comfortable and you're so grateful to be in a lovely feeling to having the experience of feeling like you don't want to be in it. But if you look at the feeling change, you've gone from content to uncomfortable. You can't have a change of feeling without a change of thought. You've gone from an unconditionally comfortable thought to an uncomfortable thought. And now that information tells you, oh, your thought changed from, I don't know, what I would call clear to distorted. But if you think the information's in the thought, then you're all discombobulated. It's like, oh yeah, I don't like feeling good. No, in the I don't feel good thought, you think you don't like it, but a minute before you loved it.
Yeah. So there's
See?
no it's not any different than anything else.
Yeah,
It's
it's
all
tricky
the same.
because and it's so instantaneous. It's tricky.
Yeah.
Like Leela and I were having lunch with somebody on Friday, and the guy says, well, the problem I have is I'm spinning out of control. And I'm thinking, and he says, oh, I'm spinning out of control. And then he described this thought processor thing. And then he described that he has these great conversations with people. I'm like, you're not spinning out of control. You're not spinning out of control because you're fine talking to me. You have these great conversations, but you have a thought that says, hey, buddy, you're spinning out of control. If you don't know that thought is illusory, you think, oh my God, I'm spinning out of control. And you'd ignore all the evidence. I'm having a lovely lunch. I was fine 10 minutes ago. I had great conversations. And then you, with a straight face, having said all that, you say, you got to help me. I'm spinning out of control. And that's how crazy thought is. And it's like that because you start feeling bad. And then you start thinking, I don't think I'll ever feel good.
Yeah.
And you believe it. And that's how it works. It's like you have this thought totally made up, wasn't true half a second ago. And you would swear on everything you hold holy. No, I'm just one of these people. I'm not comfortable feeling good. And you're like, well, half an hour ago, you were thrilled. And how do you know you're not comfortable? I'm not comfortable. But are you feeling good and not comfortable? If you're honest, like, well, no, because if I was comfortable, I wouldn't. So it's endlessly the same thing at all these finer levels.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Wow. Yeah. There isn't. Yeah. Thought is thought. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
It actually is all the same.
Yeah.
Not real.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Yeah.
But we give certain weight to some of them.
Yeah.
And that feels, the feeling is real.
Yeah.
And what? Thought,
yeah. Sorry, go ahead. I cut you
No.
off.
No.
Well, I love what you said because you're pointing to the fact of there are times where we miss the feeling and we start listening to the content, what the thought's saying.
Yeah. And the feeling doesn't, and here's the other thing. Oh, I'm just
no, go for it.
Seeing this, that I do still think with certain thoughts connected to certain feelings, primarily anxiety.
Yeah.
That those feelings have to drive my choices and my behavior.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's not true.
No.
That's not true at all. So I'm so famished because I can't stop having those kinds of thoughts and they just come up, and then I have these things and I embarrass myself in public because I can't choose the peas or the carrots in the restaurant and the waitress is getting it, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I can't, if I can just see it for what it is. And it's not it comes from something, but it doesn't go anywhere except into the ether when it's I don't need to have it driving me, which means I don't have to I don't have to do something to stop experiencing it because I'm so afraid of it, and I think it ruins my life. But it's like no.
Yeah, it's awesome. No, that's awesome. I was just thinking that is the perfect summary of what I was trying to say in the first part of the call. Thank you. It's a perfect example. I love that. I think that's exactly what I was trying to point to.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Thank you.